Hello all, I'm Professor Sandeep Ligade, working as an assistant professor in A.G. Patil Institute of Technology. So today in mechatronics we are going to deal with the sensors, that is motion sensor. Motion sensor is a electromechanical sensor basically used for wide variety of applications, right? So in mechanical systems we need to detect the velocity, speed, position, distance, and for that purpose we need to have a sensor which senses the motions, right? Vibrations of a motor, of any metallic strings and all. So for wide variety of applications we use such kind of motion sensors. And the next point that we have, that is a temperature sensor with RTD, that is resistance temperature detector, and using thermocouple, right? First one that we are going to see, that is variable reluctance sensor, right? So in variable reluctance sensor, so magnetic parts are used. So in that magnets, whatever the flux is generated, that is links to the conductor, and that flux is disturbed by the external source or external device for which we need to detect the velocity, the speed or distance or position, or you can say motion, right? And that can be interfaced with this flux, and that fluxes are disturbed, and that due to the disturbance of that, okay, EMF is induced in the coil, and that can be further processed, right? So basically what happens is the output of the variable reluctance sensor is analog, right? So we need to convert that analog to the digital part for the further processing, right? So in variable reluctance sensor, right, so we are using here a sensor with a ferromagnetic material here, and magnetic part, permanent magnet on this part, on this side. Due to that, what happens is a magnetic field is generated, and whatever the ferromagnetic part is there or material is there, on that we have wounded the coil, that is copper coil, right? So what happens, see here there is a ferromagnetic material, and on the end position here is a permanent magnet, right? And on this part we have wounded coil. So due to this permanent magnet over here, it is not shown in the figure, but then too we can assume over here is a permanent magnet, and that magnetic field is links to this conductor in this fashion, right? Basically in this way magnetic fields are linking to this conductor. And what happens is the device for which we need to measure the displacement or angular rotations and all these things, that is being interfaced over here, right? So when this rotor starts rotating, at that moment this rotor cuts this magnetic field, and due to the change in the magnetic field, right, due to the change in the reluctance, due to the variable reluctance, okay, what happens, according to Faraday's law, EMF is induced in this conductor, right? And we are getting C over here, the sine wave, negative and positive sine wave, analog form, and further it is being converted to the digital format, right, for the processing. And signal conditioning part, amplifier part, and your counter part is being used for the displaying purpose, right? So as we can count the number of revolution or speed, something like that, right? So coming to the first point, a magnet in the sensor creates a magnetic field, that already we have discussed. See over here, so this much part is a permanent magnet, and this is nothing but a ferromagnetic material, right? And this magnetic material or magnet creates magnetic field in this way, right? And that is linked to the coil. Similarly, as a ferrous object moves by the sensor, right, the resulting change in the magnetic flux induces an EMF in the pickup coil. So whatever the coil is wounded on this one, due to the movement of the shaft, or you can say rotor, or here we can see this, okay, that disturbs, that cuts the field, the flux, isn't it? without any physical contact. See, there is an air gap, there is an air gap. Without any physical contact we can measure its rotation, its revolution, whatever, its distance, its position, right, without contact. So we can say it is a contactless, right. So basically some sensors have the air gap of around 0.005 inch to 0.015 inch, and our variable reluctance sensor has the very biggest advantage is that it provides a wide air gap, that is a big air gap, 0.060 inch air gap. So based on that, right, when air gap increases, okay, when the distance between this sensor and the rotor increases, okay, less number of electricity is generated, or can say EMF is generated, right. Distance matter a lot, okay. As the distance approaches, or you can say when the distance makes we very nearer to the sensor, then proper coupling is done, right, and proper cutting of the flux happens over there, and we get proper EMF, right. So that's why distance matter a lot in this one. So there are wide variety of applications of this one, right. Without any power supply we can operate this. It is a one more advantage. So we can see over here, so no external power is required, right, and operate at high temperature, that is 300 degree centigrade, that is for the turbine speed or jet engine, right. Similarly, easy to construct and design. It's very simple because only simple coil is there, ferromagnet and a permanent magnet, that's all, and directly we have coupled, okay, the device for which we need to measure a rotation, speed, distance, position, okay, motion, whatever, etc., right. So simply two wire sensor that we can see over here, simple two wires are there, right. So that's why complexity is very less. It's actually it is not that much complex. Low cost wiring and magnets, obviously these are the various advantages of okay, VR sensor, right, motion sensor. So applications used to measure linear angular velocity, obviously, and used to measure position and torque of the motor, right, and also used in pickup unit of electric guitar, okay. So again used to measure vibrations of metallic strings and all, and similarly it is used for transmission control unit to determine when to shift from one gear to another, that is our next gear, okay. These are the various applications of VR sensor, right. So disadvantages, it's required signal conditioning, obviously, as we know that the air gap, when the distance, okay, increases between that rotor and the sensor, okay, less cutting of the flux happens over there, and that's why, okay, EMF whatever we induces, it is very less. And also when there is a proper coupling, then too the thing is what, it generates very small voltage, that's why signal conditioning part is required over there, right. So whatever the EMF is generated, that is it is in millivolts and all, right, and for the further electronic circuit we need to have around 5 volt minimum, right. For that purpose signal conditioning part is required. So that signal conditioning part that is of LM1815 from National Semiconductor, it is standard. Else with the help of op-amp, or you can say with the help of transistor also, we can design simply 741 op-amp, okay. So sensitivity to air gap, obviously that already I have told you that when the air gap increases, definitely its sensitivity decreases because it induces very less EMF, right. And alternative to this one, what happens is okay, it is very difficult to operate at a low speed, because when very less speed is there, right, due to the less speed, due to the less rotation, or you can say small motion, that will not cut flux at that rate. That's why EMF induces very less, which is negligible to manipulate and to amplify and all these things. That's why it is very difficult to monitor at low speed. This is what again disadvantage. And if you want to monitor, okay, or to predict a very low speeds, for that purpose we need to go for an alternative sensor, that is Hall effect sensor, right? But it is expensive. Hall effect sensor works okay for the 0 rpm also, for the 0 rpm, for the 0 speed also it gives an signal. This is what the advantage is, okay, of the Hall effect, but it is expensive, right? So the next part that we are going to look, that is temperature measurement, very important, right? First thing, that is EMF based, right? Thermocouple. There are various temperature sensor, right? That is thermocouple, thermistor, RTD in that PT100 and all these things, right? So there are n number of temperature sensor. In IC format, if we see LM35, okay, in IC package we can see, right? So in this first part, that is EMF based thermocouple, right? So the very first point, that is thermocouples, when two dissimilar metals, okay, there are n number of metals that we know. Nickel is there, bronze is there, right? Copper, silver, gold, aluminium, okay, n number of metals are there. From that, when we take two dissimilar metals, you can say silver and aluminium, there are two dissimilar metals. When we take that and keep at a different temperature, right? One junction is at, suppose, at hot junction, and another is of cold junction, and due to that, what happens is, due to the temperature difference, and EMF induces. We can see in the picture, right? So there are two types. This is N, this is P. There are basically two dissimilar metals, okay, dissimilar metals, and this is a junction, right? This is a junction. This junction is kept at cold, and similarly this junction is kept at hot, and there is a temperature difference, cold junction and hot junction, and due to this temperature difference, and EMF induces, and this process, this phenomena is called as Seebeck effect, because Thomas Seebeck, who is a renowned scientist who has invented this one, right? What he says is, when two dissimilar metals kept at different temperature, simply an EMF induces, right? And that EMF is very, very small. Again, the same thing, it is in microvolts and all these things, right? And if you want the high voltage, if you want to increase, okay, the voltage magnitude, for that purpose we need to cascade n number of metals, okay. Suppose we have taken silver and, okay, gold example, two dissimilar metals, and we got, suppose, 10 microvolt. If we want 20 microvolt, right, you can add to another dissimilar metals, we can cascade it. Suppose aluminium and copper, we can cascade with silver and gold, and to do that cascade, what happens is, due to the cascading, right, the voltage induction or induction of the voltage increases, right? So that is what called as cascading of the thermocouples, right? So it is clear that this is the two dissimilar metals, right? Metal A and metal B, we can say these are the two dissimilar metals, and these two junctions, T2 and T1, kept at a different temperature, and due to the temperature difference, we got an voltage over here, right? Very simple. This is what a Seebeck effect. And similarly, one more part is what? Pelter effect. In the Pelter effect, what happens is, when we take two dissimilar metals in this way, right? Two dissimilar metals, okay, and from that, what happens, when we cut from the middle, okay, when we cut from the middle, and by cutting in the middle, we can connect the voltage source over there, right? We can connect voltage source over there. So due to that, what happens is, whatever the positive voltage source is there, that act as a hot junction, and negative source act as a cold junction. Again, there is a temperature difference, and due to this, what happens, EMF induces, and that is called as Pelter effect, okay, Pelter effect. Next part, that is the construction of thermocouples, right? So basically there are three common thermocouple junctions we can see over here, that is the grounded, Next, that is exposed and ungrounded, right? So see, here is basically the probe. Okay, probe wall. This is a probe wall, right? This is a supporting phenomena for the thermocouple wires, right? There are different metals inside, 1 2 3 for example, right? So in grounded format, what happens is the thermocouple wires are physically attached to the inside of the probe wall. See, it is physically attached inside, 1 2 and 3 in this fashion, right? Okay, in this fashion it is internally connected. Due to this, what happens, good heat transfer is there, good heat transfer, right, from the outside through the probe wall to the thermocouple junction. This is what, right? And second, if we see ungrounded, in ungrounded, what happens, that two dissimilar metals, okay, that two dissimilar metals detach from the probe wall. It is being detached from this probe wall, it is kept inside, right? There is a small gap now. Due to this, what happens, right, the response time is become slower, but whatever the electrical isolations we get, okay, it's very good electrical isolations we get from this ungrounded one, okay, which is very highly required, right? This is what the process. And next one, exposed format. In this expose, the thermocouple in the exposed junction style, okay, that two dissimilar metals, what are they are taken out from the probe wall. Okay, see, these two metals are taken, or you can say thermocouple wires are taken out from this probe wall, and due to this, what happens, it offers the best response time, okay. But the thing is what, it is limited in use to dry, or you can say non-corrosive and non-pressurized applications. It is basically limited use. These are the basic three common coupling junctions of the thermocouple. Types of thermocouples, we can see over here. These are the various types. Types can be designated by the alphabets T, J, K and so on, right? That copper constantant, iron constantant, and it's a sensitivity we can see over here, that is in microvolt per degree centigrade, right? And useful, or you can say usable temperature range, that is minus 182 plus 400, it is degree centigrade, right? So these are the various this one, okay, types of thermocouples we can see in this chart, okay. Next, selection of thermocouples. On what basis that we can select, okay, the thermocouples? It is based on the temperature range. For what kind of applications you are using the thermocouples, okay, for that purpose we need to select the temperature range. And similarly, if you are using for the chemical industry applications and all, for that purpose, chemical resistance of the thermocouple or sheath material, for that purpose we use thermocouples. It should be a non-corrosive, okay, it should resist to the chemicals, right? Similarly, or else it should not react with the chemicals, okay, for which it comes in a contact. That's very important. And abrasion and vibration resistance, where the application where there is a vibrations, or you can say if you want to check the vibrations of all rotor, you can say, or strings and all, right? For that purpose, if you are using, according to that, we need to select a thermocouple. And similarly, if you take the installation purpose, the installation requirement, if you are coupling or if you are installing our thermocouple with the advanced systems, for that purpose, okay, it should be a compatible, right? For that purpose, see, the installation requirement is what, okay, may need to be compatible with existing equipments, because these nowadays the equipments that we are using, these are the advanced equipments, that's why it should be compatible, right? And mechanical part of also it should be a compatible one, right? Its probe diameter and all these things. See over here, existing holes may determine the probe diameter. Okay, these are the basic selection criteria of the thermocouples, right? So whenever we are selecting thermocouples, it is based on your applications, right? For what applications you are using, for if you are using to measure okay, temperature of the furnace, right? Or you can see boiler, right? For the chemical purpose, based on that environment, okay, we have to select. If we are using these thermocouples, okay, for the inflammable okay, chemicals purpose, where due to the short circuit and all these things may cause dangerous or you can say hazardous mishap over there, for that purpose the type of or selection of thermocouples is very important. Okay, so the advantages of thermocouple, if we see, accuracy is high, right? Self powered and robust, fine. So wide variety and temperature range, that we have seen already. Wide variety of temperature ranges, the types of thermocouples are there. Simple, easy to design and fast thermal reaction, right? And similarly it operate in wide temperature range. Disadvantage, if we see, its okay, its performance is somewhat non-linear, right? Least stable. Continuously what happens is when there is a change in the temperature, definitely okay, its behavior also get changed. Low voltage, right? Because signal conditioning part is required. Okay, reference is required over there, reference voltage is required, because when we use a thermocouple, right, and due to the environmental temperature, a small residue voltage is generated across that one. So that's why we need to set a reference, right? Least sensitivity, right? When we use two dissimilar metals, okay, it has very small voltage, very small voltage, it is in microvolt, right? And when there is a change in the temperature, right, that its voltage also changing, but it is very small. That's why that change we cannot predict. That's why it has least sensitivity. Cascading of thermocouple is required, right? Recalibration is hard over there when we, because we are using at very high temperature and all these things applications. For that purpose, continuously recalibration, right, calibration is required over there. But in this thermocouple, when we fit the system, okay, at extreme end and all these things, for the extreme temperature, recalibration is somewhat difficult, right? Applications, so it is basically used for gas turbine, exhaust diesel engines, okay, used in offices and homes, used to monitor temperature of metal, iron, aluminum, etc. All different, whatever the metals are there, we can use to monitor the temperature of gas powered appliances, okay, chemical plant, petroleum plant, boiler, furnace, etc., right? These are the wide variety of applications of thermocouple. Now we are moving to the very next point, that is RTD, resistance temperature detector, right? So in this, what happens is, this RTD is basically when there is a change in the temperature, okay, due to the change in the temperature there is a change in the resistance, and due to the change in the resistance there is a change in a current that can be easily manipulated and processed further, right? So in this RTD, we basically prefer the platinum metal. So it has a wide variety of applications, or you can say advantages. So that's why it can be constructed with the help of nickel, copper, platinum, or you can say alloy of different metals, right? So if we see the principle, already we have discussed, right? Uses the phenomena that the resistance of metal changes with temperature, that's it, right? And whatever the changes that are linear over a wide range and most stable, right? PT100, for example, if we take, right, PT100, platinum 100, right? So why the name it is given, that is PT100. PT stands for the platinum and 100 stands for the resistance of that sensor at 0 degree centigrade. Okay, PT100, that is 100 ohm, okay, at 0 degree centigrade. And similarly 138.4 ohms at 100 degree centigrade, okay, 100 degree centigrade. Now I repeat, PT100 has the resistance 100 ohm at 0 degree centigrade and 138.4 ohm at 100 degree centigrade, isn't it? There are so many PT100s, that is PT101, PT102, or you can say PT1000, right? So likewise, a wide variety of PT platinum RTD that we can get in the market based on the applications. The phenomena remains the same, that is, this indicates the resistance at 0 degree, right? So we can see over here the construction. Okay, ceramic bobbin we have used. On the ceramic bobbin there is a wire, conducting wire, okay, that is a resistance element similarly, and the platinum leads, fine, and outer case there is a protective casing, okay. So these platinum leads are connected in this fashion, they have wounded inside, act as a resistance wire, okay. So it is being encapsulated with the protective casing, very simple to design, okay. Coming to the point of the RTD, we can detect the resistance in this fashion. How to calculate the RTD resistance due to the change in the temperature? That we have the formula, that is RT stands for your RTD resistance, right? This is the reference resistance. Similarly, 1 plus alpha is the temperature coefficient, T minus T reference. T is the ambient temperature, room temperature, surrounding temperature, and T reference is the basic reference, that is, you can say 0 degree centigrade, right? Similarly, so if we take the example PT100, okay, that is RTD, and reference resistance 100 ohms, these all we can get from the data sheet, right? Alpha, that is a temperature coefficient, 0.00392 at 35 degree centigrade, because alpha may vary at a different temperature, right? For the 36, 37, 40, 45, whatever, okay, it may vary the alpha, and that readings can be get from the data sheet, doesn't matter, right? When we get all these things values, so for the 35 you can see for this temperature, okay, the RTD provides 113.72 ohms, isn't it? That already we had discussion that when temperature increases, resistance of the RTD increases, right? For the 0 degree it was 100 ohms resistance. Now for the 35 degree centigrade, see, resistance of RTD increases to, okay, 13.72 ohms. This is what the change. So advantages of platinum, okay, 3 categories of RTD that we can see: thin film, wire wound, coiled elements. These are the 3 categories, and other shapes are like carbon resistor used at ultra low temperatures, okay, minus 273 degree centigrade to minus 173 degree centigrade. These are the special RTD, right? Basically used for very low applications, low temperature applications, isn't it? These are the advantages. So the temperature resistance characteristics of pure platinum are stable, right? That's why we are using widely the platinum metal, right? So at high temperature it remains a stable, it gives us stable readings, right? So it has high resistance to chemical attack and contamination, right? Contamination over here, it is negligible in a platinum. So next advantage is what? It forms the most easily reproducible type of temperature transducer, right? So reproducing the result for the different temperature is very important. That's why highly it is recommended. So accuracy is very high. It can have the accuracy of around C plus minus 0.01 degree centigrade up to 500 degree centigrade. See, up to 500 degree centigrade it has this accuracy. And similarly right? 0.1 degree centigrade up to 1200 degree centigrade. These are the biggest advantage. Means at wide variety of temperature, this platinum metal gives the stable, we can say, stable output. Applications: audio amplifier. It is used in audio amplifier, automatic climate control, coolant sensor, emission control, and similarly engine block temperature sensors, engine oil temperature sensors, home weather station. These are the basic applications that we have seen over here. Actually there are n number of applications use, okay, where we can use the RTDs. Limitations, this is the last point of limitations of RTD. If we see, these are resistive devices and accordingly they function by passing a current. Okay, basically for the RTD we need to pass the current. Without current it may not operate. That's why limitation is what, okay, minimum current is required to operate an RTD. Similarly, even though only a very small current is generally employed, it creates a certain amount of heat. Obviously when we pass a current, it generates a heat, and due to this what happens is temperature readings, whatever it has, it fluctuates, it changes. Okay, this is what we can say limitation. Okay, based on the applications we need to pass a current over there, right? When there is a flow of current changes, variation is there or variation occurs in the flow of current, definitely its performance degrades, right? Due to this what happens is due to the flow of current, heating is generated, and that due to that heating what happens, okay, temperature changes, right? And due to this such kind of applications are used where, okay, this self-heating is in resistive sensors. Okay, due to the passage of current what happens, it get heats, and this can be significant when dealing with a still fluid. Okay, when there is a still liquid is there, for that purpose it can be used, right? That one that is neither flowing nor agitated, okay, because there is less carry off of the heat generated. Okay, simply the thing is what, due to the passage of current, heat is generated, right? And that heat causes the change in the temperature, right? And such kind of is applicable for the application where the fluid, or you can say liquid, is stable or stationary. For that purpose we can use over there, right? This problem doesn't arise with thermocouples. Okay, due to the change in the current, change in the temperature, whatever occurs, such kind of problems may not occur in the thermocouples, which are essentially zero current device. Okay, thermocouple versus RTD. This is a slide that we can see a simple comparison between thermocouple and RTD, right? These are the advantages and disadvantages. Okay, so thank you very much. Already these all points we have covered in the previous slide. This is a short summary of the thermocouple versus RTD. So thank you very much.